Guys.
Hi.
So go ahead. You want to go
uh,
ahead and get it started?
this is the third live stream of Team Bad Decisions Hobby Time. Uh, we're going to talk about a little bit about us and how we're, dealing with the whole COVID-19 thing in our hobby. We'll go into conversions with some of our top converting people and what we do for conversions, and then we'll talk a little bit about a competitive list focusing on Imperial Guard today. How we kind of go to build a competitive list, what we see in competitions, and how to make it competitive and not like mind numbing to your opponent. And then we'll have a little bit of Matt here to show a budget hobby space and how you could ball in this hobby on a budget. So I'll pass it around to you guys. How's it going? How are you guys like dealing with this stuff?
Uh, Pretty good. I mean, I'm kind of a lone wolf to begin with, so I'm just living my best life, my best COVID life.
This is an introvert's paradise.
No joke. It's driving me crazy. My
Yeah.
poor wife.
DiGiorno makes individual stuffed crust pizzas. I think I'm solely keeping that company in business right now.
I have painted more than I think I ever have, and I don't think I like it.
I mean,
too much, huh?
All that paint that you bought is no longer just sitting around looking pretty. It's actually getting used, you know?
I had to go buy new paint because it all dried out.
Oh no, that's not good.
I'm going ham on some painting here in a few weeks when I'm done my semester of school.
I'm no Marcus in berserk mode when it comes to painting. It takes me a long time.
Yeah.
The hour and a half, 30 cultists was one of my best moments in my life. I don't care what Ian says.
Hour. That's a lot.
He buzzed them. They looked. It was pre-contrast too. That was crazy.
Yeah, they looked really good if you stood back at the bathrooms at a Defecon.
They looked great for an hour and a half. No joke. They look good.
Yeah, but between the pint and the fifth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but you also painted that army really well in an enclosed space while spray painting gloss cleaner. That was another.
That was another year.
That was painful.
That'll clear the sinuses, boys.
Well, I had the mentality that I sprayed one unit and I was totally fine. So if we sprayed the whole 4,000 points, I should also be totally fine. That mindset didn't work out too well.
Brandon, I think you can attest that we came back to the room, and just as we're walking up to the room, here comes Marcus almost passing out as he's opening the door. And there's like a haze coming out of that room.
I'm sure the management got called, but we ran out of there and went and got sushi, I think.
Yeah,
he was like, I thought the window was open and the vent's broken. So, all right. Well, one of the big things that we kind of focus on, and when like Brandon and I have recently run a tournament, and we really enjoy the soft scores of things. And I recently had somebody ask me, "What's a soft score?" And I think it's because soft score, the term is an older term, and it kind of fell away towards the end of fifth, definitely in sixth and seventh. It was more of that beat phase, but a soft score is like, I think the reason they're called soft scores is because they're a little more subjective. It's the painting, the sportsmanship, the and all of those kind of hobby side of things, and not just the wins. And I think Brandon can help me because him and I wrote this rubric, and I don't know how many times we went back and forth on this rubric because it's so difficult to be as objective as possible on a subjective points scale. I think, in my opinion, I feel like we were pretty successful, and the armies that we thought should win those certain prizes did win those, but I don't know if it was opinion based or if it was like we felt like those were what fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's hard because everyone paints to the best of their ability. Like no one paints something and is like, well, maybe not everybody. Like I painted a guy as good as I could paint that guy, and I'm going to bring him to a tournament, and then some other person is going to judge me on that. compared to how they paint and how they see other people paint, which is not a frame of reference I have when I'm dealing with my model and spending time on my model, when no matter if it's converting or painting or anything.
And the big swing that we seem to be seeing, or what I feel like we're seeing more, is those airbrush armies. And it's just depending on what kind of judge you're getting. Like, personally, I prefer a hand-painted army over an airbrush army. There's a lot less of that. I don't know. Like, they use a lot of whites to make things bright, and I don't know. It just looks so clean to me and not organic. But that's a personal preference. So my personal preference is definitely going to grade somebody differently than somebody who prefers airbrushed. Because I feel like Adepticon, they tend to lean more towards airbrush because their second panel is all professional painters that use airbrush, and it's not a dig. It's just who they are, you know. And so of course they're going to prefer that airbrush. So it's really hard. I don't know. Sometimes appearance awards are hard to kind of focus on. I know since we kind of started the team, and everybody who's kind of joining, we are focusing on that a lot still. I think those are more fun awards to get. And just on my own personal preference, and just looking at soft score kind of thing, I really like the conversion side of things. I wish I was a better painter. It just takes me forever, and I get frustrated at the end when it's not like those other professional painters who can knock it out in an hour. That guy. And so I don't know. I really like the conversion side of things. It's fun to look at a model and not know like how did they do that? How did they put it together? It's that whole, I don't know, mystery of the puzzle kind of thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like when we go to tournaments and stuff, they walk by the table and they snap at the neck looking back at the table because there's something unique they've never seen before on the table. You could have a well-painted unit, but if it's right out of the box, just like everybody else has, it's only that much better than everybody else has. But if it's something completely different, you know.
I do dig the years. Adepticon is probably more of the focus for it because there's so many more people. But like, I do dig the years that people have to stand in line to look at our stuff, to take pictures of our stuff. I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than that experience. And then you get interviewed about all your work. I mean, I remember the year of that. I mean, I had to have Ian drive because I was so dog tired by the time we got to the end. You know, I was about to pass out, and I was like, dude, there's no way I'm safe driving my vehicle. I'm going to need you to drive. And like, to be rewarded with that kind of like acclaim, that kind of like everybody's snapping, like, hey, we got to get that on our stream, that kind of stuff. Like, it was really a neat experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
definitely
Matt,
win.
So Matt, when you go to a tournament, I know you tend to build. You like orcs, and your lists aren't always the flavor of the month. So there's definitely a soft score that you're always kind of. I know there's a soft score you're aiming for.
So I get pretty heavy painter's block as well. But I make sure that when I go to a tournament, everything is 3-color minimum, table ready, and the bases are based with some sort of, colored gravel or something like that. So, like I said, I've run a lot of heavy conversions. I can show an example, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So one of the biggest problems that orc players have been coming up against is when a model becomes competitive and really cool, it becomes hard to get. So one of the most popular models that we have that is almost in every orc list, no matter what, is
Broken.
Yep, you saw me drop that one. Big Mech with shock attack gun, right? It's really hard to get now. Let's see how big.
It's also resin. If they had it in a plastic kit, it'd be a little bit better, right?
No, it's actually a plastic kit.
Oh, do they have one now?
Oh yeah, they've had one for a while. So what I did is when flash kits were bad, is I took excess flash kits and I turned and then I turned them into big mechs with custom shooters, or big mech with shock attack guns. So by having that, it allows me to run 3 in a list. You know, I don't know. I like to run like I think 1 year. 1 year before they put in the rules that you weren't allowed to mob up different units. I ran what 20 mega knobs, 20 knobs, and then threw them at people. I don't know. But for soft scoring, I just like to bring energy to the table.
You definitely do that. You have a rule for that you had made against you recently.
Yeah, yes and no. I don't know. I didn't go to those.
Nuts in the front.
No.
I think these guys can guess that rule without you even ever telling them what that one was. You can go ahead and tell everybody.
So the wording came down. The rule came down to me from we won't name the TO, but he was at a local RTT that I was at, and he told me that if I brought they call it the local groups call it my Daka box, or people in the tournament scene call it my rage box. Marcus got to witness it. It's a dice shaker that I shake. Apparently, at Gen Con, it irritated a lot of people.
It is startling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You don't use it the whole game. You just use it in certain instances.
Yeah, I use it when I'm rolling 120 dice at once.
Explain what it is.
So it's basically, I don't even know if I have it. No, I don't have it next to me. I didn't know that we were. I got this bad boy. All right, out of the Walmart jewelry and beads section. Okay, well, I should quote: "We're not sponsored by Walmart." So okay, everybody relax. Right, relax. Okay, but what it is it's a bead selector box that has a pocket for 20, 20, 20, and then 10, 10, 10, and then 5, 5, 5, because that's how orcs operate, is in those kind of units. So each one is color coded with different dice, and then depending on the level of magical liquids I've consumed for the day, I shake it with my opponent with me and slam it on a table. And Marcus can attest that I usually scream Daka, Wog, or whatever, bringing my positive.
That's the problem.
Well, but
he makes this face.
So, and for those of you who don't know, I am kind of a thick man, so my whole body shakes. So it's like an orc Jello pudding pop just going to town. So, word got down to me that might be banned. So I was like, okay. I wonder what else would be banned, because I have a lot of fun at table. Like I always score pretty decently on my sportsmanship, because like, for example, like the last regional RTT, like, little hobby shop game that I went to, I got another orc player at the table behind me to belly bump me mid charge. What are we doing? Like, I don't know. One Michigan GT, I blacked out from screaming in excitement for my Drakari opponent to charge me. I got so pumped that he was able to charge me that I blacked out, apparently. They could hear me 4 ballrooms over. So it's just, when I get excited at a match, sometimes I dance, sometimes I do the hustle, disco, whatever. It's just, I like to bring that positivity to to my opponent,
I definitely think that's important in the games.
Yeah, I mean, you can show up and be, an introverted, quiet, blah blah. I've actually had opponents ask me if I can quiet down, and be like,
they hadn't even seen the Daka box yet.
No, and like I don't know. I just think Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar is a social game. Right. It's not a poker game where we've got. There's usually no purse, that we're trying to win. It's a social game.
Yeah. And one of my favorite and most memorable games in a big tournament, this was at Buckeye Battles in Ohio.
Okay.
Me and another teammate, not a teammate at the time, Dan, who was on the 3D printing episode, we weren't going to win anything. This is like game 4 of 5. We both say, whatever. We put all our units in the center of the table. We roll a dice. He wins. He takes the first unit to put in his army. I take the second unit to put in. Both of our armies were split up draft style, dodgeball style, a conglomeration of both our armies. And then
You dodge
it was the
wrench.
most even game I've ever played a 40k ever. And none of us knew the rules. Because,
Well,
yeah, it's just what we were just drinking and having fun. And at that point,
That's exactly it.
when you're game 4 or 5 and you're not winning, like you don't need to put it to somebody. Like just have some fun.
So, well, I guess then let's shift the question to Brandon. Brandon, when you're aiming for soft scores, what is your favorite one to kind of go for when you go to a tournament? What's kind of in your mindset for when you aim at a soft score?
So I'll target tournaments because of what kind of soft scoring they're allowing. Usually on a competitive tournament, you don't see anything more than like 20% in soft score. It's probably 80% battle points and theme or battle point. Like battle points are definitely over 50% of the whole thing, which has its benefits of allowing you to weed the herd down in a more objective way, but it also tends to lean towards people playing to win that game. I don't care who my opponent is. I don't care about anything in this game other than that scoreboard at the end says 40-0. That's the only thing I care about. And that's if you make your tournament like that, that's what you're going to get. And I mean, because people want to innately, human beings want to win tournaments.
right.
So, and I don't fault anybody for that. But if I see a tournament and it's got like some of the best ones out there are like 1/3 battle points because they're still important. Like people still play to see the results of the game. 1/3 painting and hobby, and 1/3 sportsmanship. And it's kind of like how we tried to run ours, Nick, where it was evenly weighted in all
Absolutely.
three. Because I feel it should be equally as important how you play the game, how you are as a player, and how the hobby aspect of the game. And that's I mean I try to look for those tournaments and there's not many. I mean there's none going on right now, but they're few and far between even when they do happen. Um, but some of the memorable ones are the 40k friendly at Adepticon. I steal their ideas all the time. I think it's a great tournament, great to play in. The Buckeye battles again, fun tournament. I take some of the rules that they use for missions and implement them in our own. They're fun and unique missions.
I like the blind deployment. That's a
Yeah.
fun one.
It's a great.
Well, you and I had one of the dumbest games ever doing that. So I completely agree, and they tend to be usually team tournaments that seem to do that a lot too.
Yeah.
So
Do you think it is an emphasis of now you have 4 people at a table instead of 2 people at a table, so you guys got to get along? Like, so we're going to weigh it more towards sportsmanship?
right. I agree. I don't want to have to bring big bodies with me to play a game.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think that's a good point. Looking at those ahead of time is you can kind of gauge on what tournament's going to be more fun than others. Like a recent tournament, I won't name it just because it's going to sound like I'm talking negatively. It's not. Brandon went 5-0, but he got like you weren't even in the top 20, were you?
No, I was 27.
Because you just didn't.
Yeah.
Right, just because you didn't kick it down people's throat. And I applaud you for that because that's rough because you win your games. You made sure you had a good time, but because you didn't kick it down their throat, you didn't rank real high. And I think I don't know, to me seems like a broken system. And I really applaud you for that because that's a tough pill to swallow.
And it is rough, especially in that tournament situation, because in order to get more points, that means I had to hit a point in the game where I knew my opponent wasn't having fun anymore. And I had to keep going. I had to hit a point in the game where my opponent knew he lost, wanted to stop playing this game, and I had to force him into an experience he doesn't want to be in order to look better on a scoreboard. And I don't want to do that.
I completely agree.
I think with sportsmanship, usually people chalk it up to the guy that got his butt kicked all day and still had a good time. I think it is more important to be able to win your games and still get top sportsmanship. I think that's vastly more important than having a good attitude, even though you're just, hanging out at the bottom tables.
Yeah.
Right. So lastly, Marcus, what is your favorite soft score? Am I pointing at the right places?
No, not even close.
I don't wanna tell
be
you where
on
you're
Skype,
pointing.
but there you go.
There you go. Lastly,
It's
Marcus, what is your soft score? I'm just gonna start.
just
A little bit of John Travolta there.
I'm
Yeah.
usually one of more of those scatterbrained people. Like, I'm not really good on the rules of the events, where it is, when it is, any of those things. I really need a leash most of the time, but
That's usually my job.
I usually use the tournaments as a like a mark to hit to add new units every time we go to a tournament. I try to at least add 1 or 2 new units to any army. That way you're not playing the same list all the time, and it'd be kind of boring going around playing the same list like 20, 30 times. I don't need to win that much where I need to tailor things that specifically. That's just my take. I used to be super competitive back in years ago.